So now we will see asynchronous calls in JavaScript. So guys, basically JavaScript follows asynchronous programming, which we are going to check with the help of examples as well. Now what is the meaning of asynchronous programming? Basically it does not wait for the response to come for a specific line of code before going to the next line of code. So basically, let's say if you are calling the API and you are expected to get certain response after 5 seconds. So the JavaScript interpreter will not wait for 5 seconds in order to get the response from that particular API, but by default it will just call that API and go to the next line of code, and that is what we call it as asynchronous programming. But we can also wait for the response by explicitly providing the await keyword as well, which we are going to check in the upcoming videos. So by default the asynchronous programming is followed over here. So as you can see, the meaning of this is basically the functions run in parallel with other functions, and this is called the asynchronous, which means the non-blocking nature. So any line of code is not going to block the interpreter from going to the next line of code over here. A good example is a JavaScript setTimeout function. So guys, let us understand this with the help of examples in VS Code over here. So simply we are going to create a new file in this case. So as you can see, we have asynchronous.js file over here. Now guys, what we will do is simply we are going to take example of the setTimeout function. So when we say setTimeout, basically what it does is it is going to wait for certain time period over here before it can execute the lines of code that are present inside the setTimeout callback function in this case. So guys, let us select this particular setTimeout function over here, and let us say we want to call certain function over here. So guys, before calling the function, let us define three functions in this case. So the first function, it is going to be 1 second over here, which is going to simply print 1 second in this case. So let me just provide the console.log statement, and then we will say 1 second over here. Apart from this, we will have two more functions, that is 2 second and 3 second as well. So simply let me just copy paste these lines of code over here, and then we will have 2 second this time, and the content will be printed as 2 second, and then we have 3 second over here. So as you can see, we have defined the three functions over here, 1 second, 2 second and 3 second, and simply they are going to print the 1, 2 and 3 seconds respectively. Now guys, what we will do is we are going to call all these three functions one at a time over here after providing the required timeout in this case. So first of all, we will call the 3 second function after waiting for 3 seconds. So over here inside the setTimeout, we are going to provide the timeout as the 3000 milliseconds over here. That's because it takes the value as milliseconds by default, and that is why we have to provide 3000 milliseconds in order to represent the 3 second time period. And then after this, we are going to call the 3 second function over here. So as you can see, we are calling the 3 second function inside this. Similarly, we are going to provide the setTimeout for 2 second and 1 second as well. So as you can see, first of all, we will provide the 2 second function. In this case, we are going to wait for 2000 milliseconds, and over here at last we are going to wait for the 1000 millisecond over here, and we will call the 1 second in this case. Now guys, if you notice, first of all we are calling the 3 second followed by 2 second and then followed by 1 second over here. So the sequence of the function calls in this case is in this particular manner. But still, as I have explained you, JavaScript follows the asynchronous programming, which means the JavaScript interpreter will not wait for this line of code to execute before going to this particular line of code and then followed by this line of code over here. So simply it is going to execute all the set timeouts at once, and then we can predict the output that this particular timeout, that is after 1 second, the 1 second function will be called first, followed by 2 second and then followed by 3 second, simply because the time, that is 1000 millisecond, will occur first, followed by the 2000 millisecond and then followed by 3000 millisecond over here. So when we save this file now and try running this code on the terminal by using the node command followed by the name of the JavaScript file, when we press enter, as you can see, we have 1 second, 2 second and 3 second over here. So even though the sequence was 3 second, 2 second and then 1 second, but still based on this particular timeout, we are getting the different sequence of the functions that are getting executed. So guys, this is the meaning of asynchronous programming, in which case all the lines of code were executed at once, and based on the timeouts over here, the statements inside the functions were executed. So guys, the same logic will be applied when you are going to call the APIs externally, and you will be waiting for the responses in the form of the JSON response or any other format of the response over here. Simply the interpreter is going to call that particular API, and then without waiting for the response, it is going to move to the next line of code or the next API. So it is the responsibility of the callback function over here in order to handle the response once it is received from the API that was called. So guys, this also we are going to check with the help of examples in the upcoming videos. Basically, the asynchronous programs are difficult to write and difficult to debug as well because of this particular reason. That is, while calling the API, we don't know how much time we will have to wait, and then we need to handle the response as well for that particular API. And if we are dealing with multiple APIs over here, we need to handle them appropriately, and that is why it is difficult to debug. And due to this, the responses coming at the varied intervals will make it more worse in order to handle the responses in terms of asynchronous programming. And guys, that is why we have something called as promises in JavaScript, which will be very helpful in order to solve this particular problem of asynchronous programming in JavaScript. So guys, we will also learn about promises in the upcoming videos as well, which will help you to handle the responses that are coming from the APIs in the form of the asynchronous calls. So guys, comment in the comment section below whether you have learned something out of this video. Please make sure that you like this video so that it reaches to more people, and subscribe to the channel so that you get the notifications on upcoming videos as well. See you in the next video, in which we are going to talk about set timeout versus set interval in JavaScript. So stay tuned.